Hello YouTube, my name is the Nobody and welcome back to another interview with Miss Misa. Did I say that
Hello.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said you know some MGTOW. You've already done an interview with Angry, I think.
It wasn't so much an interview. It was more like he joined a stream where I was trying to figure out what MGTOW was and tried to explain it to me in very aggressive terms.
Okay. So yeah, if you're still if you're still not sure what MGTOW is, I'll explain it. Just first, I wanted to start off with feminism. Just I can ask you what your opinion of feminism is.
Well, my opinion of feminism now, because I actually used to be one when I was a bit younger, but I didn't really understand what it was properly. I just thought it was about equality because that's what I got taught. But my opinion now is that it's totally based upon a, I guess, a kind of idea that men have this amazing privilege over women in the West that's systematic, which doesn't exist. And it's a movement that fails to recognize a lot of privileges that women have, which is why I dislike it so much. But
Hmm.
it also seems to me like the movement doesn't really care about a lot of issues that women actually face, because they talk about it as if they care. But then when it comes to women actually facing these issues who don't fall into the same ideological line as they do, they suddenly don't care, or it's just anecdotal evidence. And I guess I just dislike it because it's a very selfish movement that's based upon your own self-interest a lot of the time when you are a feminist.
Hmm.
And I guess I just feel like at the moment it's just full of selfish brats that just want a reason to complain about something.
Hmm. And do you have like any examples of not caring?
Well, I mean, for example, when I was just coming out of feminism, I went through some very terrible things in an abusive relationship that I was in. And as I was getting out of that relationship as well, I started questioning feminism and a lot of the normal things like the wage gap and that kind of stuff. And the second that my feminist friends knew that I was questioning this stuff, when I was bringing up how I was treated as a result of some of the things that happened to me and saying that, well, everyone believed me when I told them this, because, feminists always say that women aren't believed when they come out and talk about their abuse or like sexual abuse or rape or any of that kind of stuff. Um, they would say, well, that's just anecdotal evidence. But I know that a lot of people in my group who claimed that they had terrible things happen to them as well were just automatically believed, and that kind of thing. Like they just kind of don't care the second that you start saying that you're not a feminist when that kind of stuff happens to you, and they show you no sympathy or empathy or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, kind of like what they did to Lauren Southern sometimes.
Yeah,
How the
like it's just like what like when you're a woman, the whole idea of feminism in the movement is, you got to stick together, you got to help each other. But the second you start saying, well, actually, the wage gap is an earnings gap, they just shun you.
And what do you think of anti-feminism?
um, well, I mean, because there's different types of anti-feminists. Like as a whole, I think it's good that everyone is coming together and trying to tell the feminists about their flaws and like how terrible the ideology is and how flawed it is. But there are some strands of anti-feminism that I don't like the really kind of radical ones that just kind of use it as an excuse to hate on women in general, that kind of thing, or the people that kind of come out and say, well, this is why women shouldn't have won the vote, and then that kind of stuff. But because I guess I class myself as a kind of anti-SJW anyway, so I can't really say that I hate the whole thing because I am kind
Hmm.
of part of it.
Okay. And actually, you brought up a topic I was going to get to a bit later. But speaking of the vote, I'm actually curious what you think about the vote and the draft.
See, I understand why people argue the point that women shouldn't vote if they're not going to sign up to the draft. I'd love to live in a perfect world where no one has to, sign up for the draft and we don't have to do that kind of stuff. But I don't know, because I've always had the privilege to be able to vote, and I've never, obviously because I'm a woman, I've never had to sign up to the draft, and I don't really know what it like how awful that would be. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on the issue because I would rather not sign up for it, but at the same
Yeah.
time, if I do want equality, I'm gonna have to suck it up and just do it. So I don't really know, to be
Yeah.
honest, because I don't really want to give up my right to have a say in what happens in the country, but I understand why people would want us to have to sign up for the draft if we want to vote.
Yeah, but I mean, when you talk about having a say, right? You realize that having a say in the country also means having a say in what country you go to war with.
Yeah, that is true.
But
I'm
you'll
not really.
never, but you'll never have to fight the war or pay for it.
Yeah, that is a point. I'm not really I'm not really good with politics or like any of that kind of stuff. I don't keep up with anything that goes on in the world because I'm a self-indulgent teenager who's trying to get through uni. So like, um,
No,
that is a good.
this is just like a hypothetical, right? I mean, if you had if you had one politician that was advocating for war and another one that wasn't, let's say all men voted for the one that wasn't advocating for war, but all women voted for the politician that was advocating for war, who do you think would win?
Uh, Depending on the population, I guess
Let's say in America, right? Who do you think would win?
probably the one that would be going to war.
Okay,
I do.
and then
I
what
do.
would happen? What do you think would happen to all men? Would they
Oh yeah.
be drafted?
Well, most likely.
So so by that so okay so in that hypothetical scenario, women would be telling men to go to war, right?
I do see your point. I feel like in that kind of situation, if women are voting for it, then we should be able to sign up to go. But I think there are loads of people arguing the case that women aren't as capable in most cases to fight, and they're more likely to get their comrades killed and on the front lines and things like that as a counter argument. But then I guess
Oh,
if it is all, or they're like more likely to get raped on the front lines or something like that. But
I
I
mean,
guess
I'm not advocating to give them the draft. I'm advocating to take the vote away.
right.
Yes. I I mean I realize that that would be just stupid to give women the draft. That's ridiculous. And did you know that there was actually most women, I think before 1917, didn't want the draft because like way back in the like 1800s, that type of era, they didn't want the draft because they realized that the draft was tied to they didn't want to vote because they realized it was tied the draft was tied to voting. So
Right.
most women didn't advocate they were against the vote.
Right. Okay.
And I think in Canada about maybe can't remember how many. I don't know why the number 2000 keeps popping up in my head, but the women that did join the military as nurses actually got the vote.
Right. Okay.
So that doesn't it seem fair that not saying don't give any woman the vote, or give all men the vote. I'm saying only those, regardless of gender, that fight in the military or that have some sort of like the nurses or the soldiers. I'm not saying do it based off of gender. I'm saying do it based off of based off of a contribution.
Well, that does seem like a better system in theory. I just know that because of the kind of culture that we live in at the moment, it's ridiculously unlikely to
Oh
happen.
yeah, no, that is never within this society. I'm not delusional. I'm well aware that that is never ever going to happen. The, and not just like voting, 'cause that would be crazy. Even the smallest laws are not going to change. Don't they're only going to get worse and worse for men. I'm not expecting like any change, which is one of the reasons I think MGTOW is just a lot better than anti-feminism because I don't really see anti-feminism accomplishing anything. Like the MRA, like those guys have been around for like 100 years. What they've accomplished? Nothing. They haven't managed to do it like a single thing. But you can see how much feminism has done in the past 100 years. So really the only way to like change the system is MGTOW, but that will result in the collapse of the system But hopefully the next one will be better.
But the thing that concerns me though about MGTOW is that from what I've gathered, when it initially started, like when I initially heard about MGTOW, all I thought it was men not wanting to get married. They wanted to keep their kind of private lives out of the system. Some of them didn't even really want to have interactions with women. And to be honest, that aspect of it, I had no issue with. Do whatever you want. That's fine. But as it's progressed, there's been a lot more hatred within the movement, and a lot of the things that I've seen in like comment sections of MGTOW videos, or even like side chats in streams involving MGTOWs, it's just complete hatred and like threatening to rape people
Yeah.
and threatening to kill
Yeah.
people. And I think what's worrying me about it is that it's going to become such a radical movement that it's going to be a kind of like feminism. It's going to become more hateful to the point where it's just openly for like gender segregation or something.
Yeah. What do you think of me? Am I hateful?
Well, you don't appear hateful. You seem quite logical and reasonable. And this is the thing. Like I've spoken to some MGTOW content creators, or even just some people who claim that they are MGTOW, and I completely understand why they have gone MGTOW. Like I completely get it, 100%. And to an extent, I understand why a lot of the men that I've seen in comment sections are so hateful. It's really upsetting that it's gotten to this point where they have to hate women so much. But I can see why. I mean, I am a woman. Women are awful.
Well, the fault is on both sides when it comes to feminism. I mean, women advocate for it, but men, I guess, allow it. Would be because it couldn't have really done anything without men, right? You couldn't have accomplished it. It wouldn't have gotten anywhere without the men. So if I'm being fair, both sides are to blame.
Yeah, I'm making a video on this at the moment about like white knighting and how that's kind of influenced it as well.
Yeah.
Because one of the aspects of white knighting, like this is coming from a girl who despises it when people try and white knight me. Like I actually like hate it with every fiber of my being. But I've seen a lot of even anti-feminist, anti-SJW female YouTubers using men to automatically win debates or win arguments, or to just save them from having to be in fights or arguments or debates. And just watching the amount of manipulation go on, like I can see why feminism did get where it was, because women are very good at kind of making men do what they want. Like it's actually
Yeah.
quite scary to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think of the of voting without paying taxes?
um, See, I think that if you're going to try and have a say in what goes on in the country, you need to do everything that a citizen should be doing. So,
Hmm.
I mean, if paying taxes is something that your country requires you to do in order to be a citizen, then I would say that you should be paying taxes if you're going to vote.
Well, and what is voting, right? Voting is deciding how the taxes are going to be spent and what countries you go to war with, right? If it's anything, it's those things, right?
Yeah.
So even if your country doesn't require, like, it's not written to be like in America, right? It used to be that way, that to be a citizen you had to be drafted, right? But now it's not like that anymore. But you can still see that it's unfair, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't contribute anything to the tax system, if you drain it by, let's say, the $150,000 in your lifetime, it doesn't seem fair that you get to decide how the taxes are spent.
No.
But then again, I mean, I'm also a libertarian, so I really don't care for taxes at all, unless it's for like roads or like police, firemen, and even then I've been watching a lot of like anarcho-capitalist videos, so I'm really starting to get into that. So maybe no tax at all, but I don't see I don't really see anarchy working, because I've noticed that throughout history, every good thing tends to like just devolve into government, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's a cycle, this whole thing. I mean, MGTOW has been it isn't new. I don't know if you know this, but MGTOW has been around for thousands of years. It's nothing new. It just keeps coming and going. It's even observable in the animal kingdom.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they did a. Have you heard of the mouse utopia experiment?
No.
Okay, so they basically took a bunch of mice, put them in some sort of finite area, and just gave them as much food as as many resources as they want. They just gave them lots of food, and the mice started reproducing. They kind of like they had their own welfare state. Only they didn't have to work for it, and eventually they saw basically what we're seeing in society today. As people get spoiled and there's more and more population, so the there was like a lot of aggression. But both genders started getting very aggressive. There was cannibalism. The men started fighting, and there was cannibalism with them, and the women just neglected the females neglected their children and started becoming very aggressive. And then you started seeing like the males, some of them started going MGTOW, and they were nicknamed the beautiful ones because they basically they like they just didn't care for their for their classic male roles of like protection and that stuff, so they had no scars on them from any fights, and they were very minimalist. They only came out at night to like eat, and that's about it. So then they were called the beautiful ones, and you can see like you can see how that's MGTOW. And an interesting thing is they never reverted back. They never went back. And another thing is in Rome, for example, you saw a lot of men go MGTOW, which is the reason for its collapse. Basically, I can't remember. I think what happened was the women there started complaining to the emperor, or they somehow got some sort of vote. But one way or another, the law started. The society started to get pretty feminist in Rome, and eventually men just stopped getting married, and it got so bad that the what's it called the Roman emperor decided to have a bachelor tax. But they still wouldn't get married, and then he decided that like make all sorts of other laws against bachelors, like they have to run naked in the streets and people will throw rocks at them, but it's still they still refuse to get married. And then you have the whole thing about like in Europe, right, where the birth rate, there was no birth rate, so they started bringing in Rome they started bringing in the barbarians, or in Europe they're bringing in the Muslims. And you can see like it's a cycle, right? It's happened then, it happened thousands of years ago, it's happening today. So what do you think?
Well, this is my point about the whole MGTOW thing. I completely understand. Like, for example, MGTOW 101, he uploaded a video, I think it was about Israel, and how feminism has essentially ruined any chance that men have of having like an equal playing field to women, because women are like, they're making false rape accusations. Like, you have a really high chance of being accused of rape if you even like have a normal relationship with a woman and she just wants to get you back. And just watching how the women acted when they had so much free reign to do whatever they wanted, I mean, it's terrifying, because I am a woman and I know how women are. Like, all of my female friends, they've done some very questionable things. And I'm not saying that men aren't, sometimes terrible too, because, there have been some men in my life that have done some really awful things. But when it comes to women, they are so emotionally manipulative and conniving. Not all of them, but like some that I've interacted with have been so duplicitous and deceptive, and they've lied about some grotesque things just for petty reasons. And it's hard to argue against a lot of what MGTOW say a lot of the time, because a lot of stuff that like the argument that you've just made about how feminism is, I don't want to say it like this because it sounds so overdramatic, but feminism just makes societies collapse. I can see why, because I don't want to sound too like traditionalist, but when you give women that much power, when they're as conniving and deceptive as they are, and that they don't understand a lot of the times that the privileges that they have are like that, they're really, God, I'm like going on a huge like tangent, but it's just I can't argue against a lot of what MGTOW say.
Yeah, well, you know, all of us, you, me, we've all been brought up to you know, we've all been indoctrinated into this cult of equality. So to admit that maybe men and women aren't that equal would be, you know, would be hard. But it's observable, you know, it's observable in statistics, in studies, and in real life. And it seems to be the societies that accept the differences between men and women are the ones that thrive, and the ones that don't are the ones that collapse.
But this is the thing about feminism that I get really frustrated with, is the whole concept that men and women are just, they're not different at all. But they're, like, for example, the whole physical strength thing, like how men are biologically usually stronger than women. You know, feminists like to kind of ignore that fact. But then the second that the whole, oh, should you punch a woman debate comes up, like,
Like,
oh, no, but men shouldn't punch women because, you know, they're stronger.
yeah, have you heard of the like primary aggressor the Duluth domestic abuse model?
No, I haven't.
So it's basically based on the idea that men are stronger. So basically, whenever if a man hits a woman, like in a domestic abuse situation, he'll be, you know, removed from the home. But if a woman hits a man in the domestic abuse situation, then he'll also be removed from the home. And it's, I mean, that law was those came from second wave feminism. And you know, they're still implemented today in America, actually in just about, I think, all Western countries. So basically, if a woman hits a man, you know, if it's domestic abuse, statistically the man is more likely to go to prison.
See, it's just, it's so messed up. I mean, even where I live in the UK, legally, a woman can't rape a man
Oh
because rape
yeah,
has to include penetration. It's just stuff like that. Like, you don't hear anything from the feminists about that.
yeah, no, that's so it's everywhere. That I've done a video about that actually, where basically, and I saw the way I saw there was a petition. They wanted to get 100,000 signatures, got about 20,000 signatures to change the, you know, the definition of rape, and the way the UK government responded was just, it was just incredible. What they said was, the law already protects both genders, and then they just gave the same definition you just gave me.
Oh my
You know, there has
God.
to be, like, how you say that it protects both genders, and then you just give the, like, the incredibly biased definition.
See, this is another thing with the strength argument, because one argument that I've heard from feminists about why you can't include women raping men in the definition is because men are more likely to be able to get out of the situation because they're stronger. But, you know, there have been so many cases of, like, for example, women drugging men,
Yeah.
or like men being highly intoxicated, or just things like that. And or there's been cases of men who are younger who have been raped by women. Like, I've got a friend, a male friend, who has been raped by a woman, but he didn't even see it as that, because that's how society's bringing up men to just think that, you know, if a woman gets you very, very drunk and she has sex with you, it's, you know, you should feel lucky because you got laid.
Yeah, and then it is really stupid how feminists say that, you know, they're fighting to like, so men can share their feelings too, and you know, so that no more like traditional male roles, so men don't have to work all the time. But then when you look at all the laws they pass, it's exactly the opposite. Like, every single law they're in favor of causes the exact opposite.
The thing is, though, how can men display their emotions and talk about their feelings when the second that they open their mouth, you're going to tell them that they're mansplaining to you?
Yes, that's exactly, because they say things on you know, they say things on, like, you know, men should be able to display their feelings, as you said, but then, you know, with the laws they pass, for example, you know, from what they say, they're just so hypocritical.
Mm.
And I was curious what you think of like libertarians.
Well, like I said, I'm not very knowledgeable on a lot of political things, but I I've been described as a libertarian by a lot of my I guess anti-SJW friends, because I guess I'm not centrist necessarily, but I do have some conservative views, but some liberal views as well. So I guess that's kind of that's what I've gathered it is.
Okay.
But I don't have a real opinion because I mean, I try and run my channel and well, I guess my views as not labeling myself as anything like ideologically, and there's a lot of these things like I only recently found out what ANCAP was or like the whole Antifa thing. Like I've only just recently discovered what those are, so I don't really know, to be honest.
Mhm. Yeah, but a libertarian, I mean, would you be in favor of large government or small government? You know, would you be in favor of very high taxes that redistribute to everyone, or would you be in favor of, you know, really just minimalist taxes, you know, that just go to things that everyone uses, like the roads, police, firemen? So, like, which one would you be in favor of?
I guess the latter, because I'd rather that they be used for something that's immediately useful.
Yeah, okay, so you do seem to be a libertarian, more, at least I assume from what you've said so far. And what do you think of parental rights for men?
See, I just feel like everything, like, for example, divorce proceedings, I just feel like you should let the kids go with whoever would do the best job, not just automatically give them to the mother just because they're the mother. Because I do understand that a lot of people argue the point that the women are the ones who carry the children for 9 months and have to give birth to them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be a better parent or they're going to be better for the children. So I feel like you should just place the kids in whatever environment they would be best growing up in.
Well, yeah, well, actually, statistically, the single mothers will be the worst parent.
Yeah.
So that
No,
kind of goes against all logic. But what I'd be more in favor of, and this would be in like the average divorce. Obviously, there'll be certain cases where it's not a good idea to implement it. But in the average divorce, I'd be more in favor of some sort of 50-50 split, and like no child support, 50-50 split.
yeah. See, in an ideal world, I would prefer that. I do recognize though that there are a lot of men who do bail. Like
Yeah.
especially in the UK, there is a huge issue with guys literally pumping and dumping. I do recognize that. But yeah, in an ideal world, 50-50 would be best.
Yeah, but I mean that whole pump and dump thing that came, that I mean that didn't happen. That wasn't like a thing before feminism, right? If a man got a woman pregnant, he'd marry her. So a lot of the reasons for that is because they know they're going to get stuck with child support, or that they know that, you know, that they can't have an abortion, they can't give the child up for adoption, so that's it. Like their life is screwed. Once if they get like a you know woman pregnant, that's it. Child support,
Yeah.
maybe even like marry her. So that it's at least for, as a man, for me it's understandable if the laws were, you know, more fair. And what do you think of financial abortion?
See, when I started YouTube, my views on abortion were very, I don't want to admit this, but very feminist. But
Hmm.
as I've actually spoken to people and I've done research and I've really sat down and thought about it, I am, if you're going to have an abortion, it has to be for a damn good reason, and you shouldn't make anyone else pay for it because
Hmm.
it's disgusting for feminists to act as though women should just have them just because, you know, as a form of contraception. I think that's absolutely vile, in all honesty. Like, there's so many ways that you can prevent pregnancy for women, especially. Like, obviously with men, that there's only a limited amount of options, but with women, we have so many different ways, and we're taught at a very young age how to access them. I think if you're going to have an abortion, you need to pay for it yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, but no, for financial abortion, that's not what it means. Financial abortion is basically
Oh,
when I think it's up to 4.5 months, the first 4.5 months of pregnancy,
mm.
when a man gets to say that he doesn't want anything to do with a child,
Oh,
but he's also not financially, he doesn't, like, he has no parental rights over the child. It's technically not really his child anymore, but he doesn't have to pay for it.
right.
Because it's
Um,
like, instead of it, because he can't get an abortion, so instead he gets to opt out of parenthood in a different way.
I'm not, hmm, I'm not really sure what my views on the whole thing are because it's quite a tough issue.
Well, let's say in this system where abortion is still completely legal, where women don't need a reason to get an abortion, where they can just get an abortion because they feel like it. What would you say in that system?
Mm, I don't know because I feel like it's tough because it really depends on circumstance and reason as to like obviously like you need to discuss it in depth, and I don't think that there's any circumstance where a woman should go behind a man's back and just do it, and I don't think that there should be a point where a man has to give up his rights to have a say, but it is obviously quite a tough issue. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, but that would that would at least protect from like sperm jacking and stuff like that.
That is true. That is true.
Because that that's that's legal. There was actually a case where a woman raped a 13-year-old boy, and then she got pregnant, and then she waited till he turned 18, and then she sued him for child support, and she won.
That is, oh my gosh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do, right? That's, as I said, the system. Those laws will not be changed because yeah, women are the majority voters. You know, even though no net tax, no draft, they still get the say in how the country's run. Politicians have to pander to them. So the laws are not. You can see that year by year they're not. Yeah, as many, and as popular as being an anti-feminist is, and as more and more women say they're not feminists, the laws are still only getting worse and worse. Because feminist, it's just a label, right? But the I saw, I can't remember, I saw like a study on the MGTOW channel. I tried to look for it, so I can't confirm if it's right or not, but it basically said that even though only like 20 or less than 20% of women identify as feminists, like over 80% of them are in favor of feminist laws, and like 50 or like over 50% of men.
See, the thing is with being an anti-feminist that I've noticed is that a lot of, when it initially started, women who came out as anti-feminists usually did genuinely believe the stuff that they were saying. But nowadays it feels like a lot of people are just saying that they are to be a part of the community that we've built up.
Yeah.
And it just kind of feels like a lot of things that they say they're not genuine about. Like, for example, there's an anti-feminist YouTuber that I know. I'm not gonna say who it is because I don't want to cause any drama. But a lot of the things that she does don't reflect a lot of the stuff that she says. Like, she will get guys to white knight for her. She will use her female privilege to make her audience do whatever she wants. And she's so emotionally driven. Like, she doesn't think about things before she does them. And it's just like that is basically like, I'd say about 80% of the anti-feminist females on YouTube.
Yeah, I did definitely notice that with the not just the females, really, with most anti-feminists, because I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I I I do think that a lot of feminists are just going to rebrand feminism as egalitarianism and join the anti-feminist community. That's why I mean, look at I think Lacey Green. She's done it can't, maybe she's going to join the anti-feminist community. But then they'll probably, like, again, advocate for laws under the, like, it's egalitarian or it's anti-feminist, but yeah, women tend to kind of go what's, I guess, socially acceptable. So I guess now it's socially acceptable for them to be anti-feminist and not to be feminist anymore, but still the laws themselves, what they advocate for, that's not going to change. The label changes, but like how they're trying to rebrand communism as anarchy, which doesn't even make any sense to completely they're like the two opposites. It's just kind of constantly rebranding it. That's what the left
Yeah.
is very good at, just constantly rebranding and renaming things. They're excellent at, I guess, using language to get people to agree with them.
See, one of the things about anti-feminist YouTubers I think really needs to happen is that this might just be with me, but my views have changed really dramatically since I started doing YouTube on here, and I've spoken to more like conservative people or even just MGTOWs, just talking to people with opinions who are completely different from mine. And one thing that the girls really need to do is sit down and actually think about the stuff that they're talking about, because they're claiming that they're one thing and they're saying something completely different. And I think abortion is a really good example of this, because a lot of the girls that I know do have the view that you should just be able to get one whenever. But that is a very feminist kind of, we deserve our own decision when it comes to our sexuality kind of view.
Well, yeah, I already had an argument with an anti-feminist yesterday, and basically it was also an interview, but it's so long it's gonna take me a while. It's like 4 hours maybe,
Oh,
because we started. Unlike the two previous interviews where those two were just agreeing with me on everything, this one, the more we talked, the more I noticed that we disagreed on the vote and the abortion rights. But this is a very common theme among a lot of people, where they say, if a man has sex with a woman, then he has to take responsibility. But then why doesn't a woman have to take responsibility and not get an abortion?
yeah, I don't want to use like trashy talk shows as like an example, but I watch Jeremy Kyle on a regular basis because I love trash TV. And one thing that I have actually started to notice is that when the couple come on the show, right, and the woman's had a baby, the talk show host, he'll have a go at the guy and say, you should have put something on the end of it, basically. But then he doesn't tend to have a go at the women. Like he'll make like an offhanded comment like, maybe you shouldn't have let him have sex with you without wearing a condom. But the women will always just be there like, yeah, but he should have put one on. And it's like, no, like when you hit a certain age, you should be able to determine what kind, like, as a woman, we have so many different types of contraception to use. Like, there's no excuse.
Yeah, and when it comes to, obviously the TV, it's going to be very very pro woman, very gynocentric. I mean,
Yeah.
especially those types of shows, I'm assuming more women watch it. There'll be more women in the audience. You're not really allowed to cater to men on TV, mainstream media anyway. But so yeah, I mean that's why you're gonna get shows like that. I mean those types of things, they're all about making money, and that's just how they're gonna make money.
I know, it's frustrating because I know a lot of teenage girls watch that show, and teenage girls in Britain they're stupid. They don't, when it comes to sex and boys and all of that kind of stuff, they're really stupid, and they don't think before they do anything. And I'm very lucky because I grew up in a household that was very conscious of this stuff. My mum made sure that when I was pretty young, like maybe 14, 15, I knew about all the types of contraception I could take. Like I was very lucky, but a lot of girls I know have gotten themselves in really terrible situations because they didn't think about it.
Yeah, and anyway, going back to the anti-feminist, have you heard of gynocentrism?
I've heard the phrase be thrown around a lot, but I don't actually know what it is.
Okay, so MGTOW are gonna use it a lot. So MGTOW on anti-feminist, they're anti-gynocentrism. Feminist, I mean anti-feminist, at least third wave feminism. I don't like any of the waves, as I've already said before, and I'll get to that in a later. But gynocentrism is kind of like putting the needs of the woman above the needs of the man, like, or seeing things from a female perspective. That type of thing.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see this a lot in the anti-feminist community when, for example, like as you said with the female anti-feminists. So what I started to notice, one of the reasons I still watch a lot of anti-feminist videos. I still like a lot of them, but I don't consider myself one of them anymore, because like one of the things I noticed was that a lot of female anti-feminists would always say, I'm against feminism because it makes me feel bad, because it gives me a bad name, because I want to be like a housewife, or because me. Like
Yeah.
I've only ever seen two female anti-feminists that seem to be anti-feminist for for men's rights. But those are, I guess, Karen Strawn and Diana Davison.
Yeah.
So they're really the only ones that will even like dare challenge the like first and second wave feminism. Like talk about what I said about the voting, and talking about like how all of society, even a lot of anti-feminists, have bought into this whole the patriarchy theory thing. Like like before anti-feminism, like let's saying like the women couldn't get a job and they were forced to stay at home. There's like no evidence to support any of that, but still the most definitely the average person and most I don't know about most, but even a lot of anti-feminists have bought into the whole patriarchy theory thing. Like before first wave feminism was just so bad, but there's no like when even let's say when it comes to domestic abuse, as Karen's, the same laws we have today were basically the same laws that we had back then, and the same views on domestic abuse were like they said like the Duluth model. You had a really similar system back then, but even the anti-feminists tend to kind of buy into that myth.
I think one of the main reasons for that is that when women join the kind of anti-feminist community, they do what I did, which is I started making videos because I wanted to rant, because I was so sick of not being able to talk about this stuff in front of people that I knew, because I didn't want to lose any friends or any family members over it. And they don't know much about it when they start. And then as they get into the community more, it does become an echo chamber after a while. And the men do want to pander to the girls because, I don't want to say it like this, but the guys see a female anti-SJW YouTuber and they're like, oh my God, it's a girl. Oh my God.
Yeah, definitely. I was, I was like that. Like you see in the videos, like why I'm not like always when a woman's like why I'm not an anti-feminist. What? I mean, I used to be like that as well, but now what I hear is women shouldn't have 100 more rights than men. They should only have about 70 more rights than men. That's like what I hear when the average female anti-feminist talks. That women should only have like this amount of more rights more than men, but not those rights. But then it seems like what they hear is like, oh my God, she's an anti-feminist, like marry me. Just look at the comments. So many of them are just like simping. And on my old account, I used to leave those types of comments like, "Oh my God, marry me," that crap. But yeah, I've stopped doing that. I've noticed, just not a good idea. And I think I don't know if the anti-feminist community was always like that, but do you think it's because women joined it suddenly became very gynocentric? Like, because I noticed that both male anti-feminists and female anti-feminists, like they seem to think that the sexism of low expectations or the bigotry of low expectations is somehow worse than than just regular bigotry. So they'll say things like we shouldn't have hiring quotas because it makes women feel bad. Like that's the reason they're not in favor of hiring quotas. Like not because it's clearly discrimination, but usually the first thing they'll bring up is because it makes the poor women feel bad.
Well, the thing is, when the whole anti-feminism thing started, it did happen because of like Atheism Plus and then Gamergate, but it was only people like Sargon or TJ were doing videos like that. So it was only men. And I think back then the movement was more focused. Like we had more of a kind of end goal, which was to just dismantle all of the stupid feminist crap that was coming out of like Anita Sarkeesian's mouth and stuff like that. But I think now that I'm actually in the community, I've kind of noticed that a lot of the people in it, and I feel like I'm gonna lose some friends over this, but a lot of the guys are very deprived of female interaction, and a lot of the women and I'm guilty of this, but they thrive off of it because a lot of the women who are in this community don't have a lot of a social life outside of YouTube. And they don't get a lot of attention necessarily outside of YouTube. But because YouTube's full of guys who don't really get laid or they love being flirtatious, it's just easy to kind of use that to your advantage a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I don't want to act like I'm not one of them, but like a lot of the times when, for example, guys want a white knight for me, I had an incident recently where my subscribers wanted to go after this one guy because he was giving me legitimate harassment, and I begged them not to. Like, I actually full on begged everyone. I went on my Twitter, I went on my Minds account, I went on my stream, and I begged people not to. And people still did it.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's the
they're
kind
still
of
gonna
stuff
do it.
that I hate. Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that I hate. Like, it, for me, the community just seems to have become a massive circle jerk, but it also seems to be kind of run by the women behind the scenes, because the women do manipulate the guys into doing some really stupid stuff.
Oh yeah, even before women got the vote, there was a concern that a lot the husbands would vote the way the women wanted.
Yeah.
So I mean, it definitely happens. But I was definitely, if I didn't find MGTOW, I'd probably be like that. I would have been like, if we were having the interview and I didn't find MGTOW, I'd be, oh, okay, I'm sorry if I offended you. Yeah, so I I don't know. I think MGTOW is just like, right now at least, it seems to be the only way, because anti-feminism, MRA, it maybe there's a tiny chance that they might maybe get some laws repealed, but even so, you'll just go back to like kind of like mid second to third wave feminism. You're not going to fix anything, and then it'll eventually just kind of bounce right back, and it'll constantly. It seems to be like the anti-feminists and the what's it called? The anti-feminists and the feminists. It's kind of like a war between modern traditionalism and feminism. And MGTOW see traditionalism, modern traditionalism anyway, and feminism, like they're two sides of the same coin. They're both gynocentric. They both cater to this, the needs of the woman only or mostly. So a lot of MGTOW, they don't care for traditionalism or feminism.
Yeah. But I feel like one of the main reasons why like our community seems so disarray at the moment is probably because I don't think the women understand in our community that they still kind of run things based on their emotions. And I think MGTOW seem to, like, you guys are great because you seem to not give a damn about what we feel. You say things based on what you know. You say things based on the statistics you have. Whereas guys in our community still try and cater to our emotions and make sure that they don't hurt our feelings, make sure that they still have us as friends.
Oh
And
yeah,
it frustrates me so much because I
definitely.
want people to be straight with me and tell me this is how I feel based on the statistics I have, not this is how I feel based on how I think it's going to make you feel.
Okay, so yeah, actually, a very good example would be Milo Yiannopoulos using like a very misleading IQ studies to not hurt
Yeah.
the woman's feet. Because if you want to look at if you want to look at the real IQ studies, go to TFM. He made a video on this, debunking the whole egalitarian IQ studies, the commonly accepted. But yeah, they will definitely bring up. I mean, I have noticed that they only they will definitely try to spare the woman's feelings on the anti-feminist community, and MGTOW, they just don't care. They'll use statistics, you know.
Yeah.
So I that's another reason that I left. I was really disappointed. I kept hearing that's like the study be the IQ study, and then I saw TFM debunking it, and I couldn't believe it, because I thought the anti-feminists, those guys, they never lied. They only used like real statistics. They wouldn't lie for their own agenda. But then I saw it just being debunked, and I couldn't believe that they were doing it.
Yeah. Like in our community, I still watch a lot of my friends' videos, like I Rate Bear, Ranting Monkey, Tailed Features, like those kind of people. And I still watch people like Undooms because I love him. He's like bestie. But I prefer videos from people like Sargon or, and I'm going to get a lot of crap for this, Tildia, or just people that they don't cater to anyone, really. Like
Yeah,
they just kind of say what they think or say what they've discovered or that kind of stuff. Like they don't try and pander to anyone.
Yeah, Tiddledeer and Black Pigeon Speaks. Those two can, they're considered kind of MGTOW because of I know that the Black Pigeon, he actually has the same opinion on me as me as the voting, and he made
Yeah.
a video on like how women destroy society. So I suddenly noticed that he seems very red pill, and I'm not talking about the fake red pill that they'll give you in the anti-feminist community. That's just kind of borrowing from MGTOW's red pill. I'm talking about the real MGTOW red pill, and also Tiddledeer. He himself mentioned the same thing I said about IQ, that he's not allowed to bring up real IQ studies because it's going to trigger anti-feminists.
Yeah.
So I kind of I just didn't like it that like trigger anti-feminists by bringing up statistics. What?
Well, I feel like our community's become a bit like high school, where we're all in our own little cliques and everything is kind of based on how we feel about the other person. There's a lot of backstabbing going on. There's a lot of pandering going on, and it doesn't feel like what I discovered, like when I first discovered anti-feminism. It doesn't feel like when I first found it, like Sargon and TJ and people just either ranting about things they genuinely believed in or coming up with statistics and studies and stuff from academia, and it just doesn't feel like that anymore. It just feels like, oh, I'm going to defend this YouTuber because this other YouTuber made a video on him and rah.
Oh yeah, I did actually. I don't know if it's just me, but I did notice more and more anti-feminists attacking each other as of late.
It's because there's not, like with the culture war going on at the moment, you have to be really passionate about it to make videos on it, and you have to know what you're talking about. But there's not a lot of like low-hanging fruit at the moment. There's not a lot of bedroom feminists. There's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
a lot of feminists like Riley Dennis. There's not a lot of that to go around. So everyone's just like starting beef with each other instead.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because before that, you'd constantly see like a bedroom feminist video, but then they've all they've all been owned, I guess. Like wrecked feminist videos, they've all been wrecked, and then there's just there's less of them to go around, so they start fighting with each other sometimes.
Yeah.
I definitely think that the next that's I think one of the reasons is that's why they're coming after MGTOW more and more, and I think that what's it called, the people that are going to come after MGTOW will not be the feminists. The people that are going to come after MGTOW will be the MRAs and the anti-feminists.
See, the thing about MGTOW, and I might just be a bit of a like, I try and be friends with everybody and everything, but the thing about MGTOW is that when you look at it from our perspective, at first, it does seem very crazy and radical because you see the comment sections of people just being vulgar. But like, I've had actual conversations with Angry. I've watched videos from different MGTOW YouTubers, and when you actually sit down and listen to some of the things that you guys have to say, you realize that you guys make sense. You guys are saying things that do actually make sense. You're not just all women hating and wanting to rape all the women you see. You're not all crazy like that. And I think a lot of people in my community just don't want to listen to it because they don't want to hurt the feelings of women that they're around.
Yeah, if you want like really good MGTOWs, I guess the most respected MGTOW, one of the original, I think that like one of the basically the first YouTube MGTOW at least. Have you heard of Barbarossa?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you watch any of his videos sometimes?
No.
Okay, so yeah, definitely, if you're interested in a very good MGTOW, Barbarossa, Stardust, also as I said already, TFM, because he does show very well, he goes after statistics, and we won't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
So those are the best MGTOW if you're looking for, if you're not looking for low hanging fruit. But yeah, you're gonna have low hanging fruit on both sides, and definitely with like hating women, that you will find that a lot in the comment section. But if you look at the actual videos, you don't tend to find that too much. At least not among the popular MGTOW, the most watched MGTOW, the most popular MGTOW. Like you're probably gonna find a few MGTOW with just a couple hundred subs maybe, that ranting about hating women. But when it comes to the most popular MGTOW, they tend to just go, as I said, just not spare anyone's feelings, talk about statistics, that type of stuff, or not necessarily statistics. Maybe they'll give stories. Sandman gives a lot of stories, and I think that's why people like him. Also, obviously, he makes a lot, like a video every day at least. I tried to
Yeah.
I tried to watch his entire video playlist. He's got like over 1,000, so that didn't work out.
Yeah.
I maybe managed to watch a couple hundred, but I just couldn't anymore. But yeah, do you know what the red pill rage is?
No.
Okay, so that's what you were describing about the comment section. That's what MGTOW call it. So it's
Oh.
basically when you first discover MGTOW, and you realize that you've been lied to your whole life, and then you get really angry. So like you've been red pilled. So the red pill rage.
Yeah.
And people, they get over it, some within months, some within years, some very very quickly, but there'll always be new MGTOW joining and kind of refreshing the ranks of the red pill rage. So that's probably not going to go away in the comment section.
Yeah, like it. I think obviously, if I did an interview of a more like radical MGTOW, I know the comment section would just be filled with like, oh, I wish this, like I'll just face fuck this bitch or something like that. But I don't know. I guess when you think about it, it's just internet comments. It's just YouTube comments, and YouTube comments are usually cancer anyway.
Yeah, they are definitely cancerous most of the time. But a lot, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of MGTOW do actually want a family. But it's more that the laws, they're really bad, and a lot of MGTOW actually do have a family or used to have a family. Because a
Yeah.
lot of them came from a lot of them were married and then they got divorce raped. So a lot of them do want to have a wife and kids, but they realize that that's one of the reasons, a reason that they'd be so angry is because they realize that they can't have like a wife and kids in this society.
Yeah, plus a lot of people in my kind of generation or age group, they're so full on with the whole, sexual freedom thing that it's just crazy. Like a lot of people that I hang out with keep trying to encourage, like I'm quite a traditionalist. I'm one of those people. I want to meet a dude, get married, have kids, be a housewife, that kind of stuff. But I'm stuck in this stupid university studying something that is useless and trying to pursue a career because I've been told that that's what I'm supposed to do. And a lot of my friends are encouraging me to do the whole one night stand thing, but the whole idea of it actually sickens me.
Yeah, and would you consider yourself a modern traditionalist or just a regular traditionalist?
Probably a modern traditionalist, if anything. Like, I don't know. I'm one of those, I'm not, I don't want to sound like, I'm not like the rest of my generation, but I am just one of those people that just wants to be taken care of. I'm a girl that just wants a husband to make sure that she's okay and to take care of us all financially. I want to take care of the kids. I want to make him dinner when he comes home. Like, I'm one of those people.
Okay, so I think there's a little miscommunication here. When I say modern traditionalist, I'm talking more about well, it's kind of hard to define it, but basically, as I said before, MGTOW really don't like modern traditionalism because, as usual, it caters to the needs of the world. Modern traditionalism would kind of be like today, man up, get married, even though you're probably going to lose like half to 70, 80% of everything. So modern traditionalism would be more like advocating for alimony, advocating for like men to be drafted, but still the vote, or just men should have to kind of like do everything. But it's basically just it's against feminism, but it's still not against women having more rights than men.
Oh, okay. So when I initially said when I started YouTube, I knew like nothing. I'm still building on that, and I still don't know a lot of things.
Yes, I know. There's still a lot more to learn. TFM comes up with very, very interesting theories about like hypergamy, gynocentrism, that type of stuff. Do you know what? Have you heard of hypergamy?
God, I feel so stupid.
Well, I'm giving you I'm talking about MGTOW stuff when you're an anti-feminist, or
True.
so, so you don't necessarily need to know this because I think you're quite are you new to MGTOW?
um, I only started really researching into it in the last month and a half or so.
Oh, okay, yeah, so you are new to it, but
Yeah.
so you've never heard of hypergamy?
No, I mean I've heard the term, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
Okay, so hypergamy is basically just the idea of women being attracted to the man with the most resources.
Ah, okay.
And it's like kind of like they'll say like monkey branching, like a woman going from
Oh
one
yeah.
man to another. Okay, so you know that. So what do you think about the concept of hypergamy?
I think in a lot of ways it is accurate. Well, at least, obviously, I'm only going to be able to use like anecdotal evidence, but from what I've seen around me, it does seem quite accurate. And I have actually witnessed women monkey branching, quote unquote, from one guy to the other. And it does usually happen, as depressing as it is, when the girl gets bored. Or
Hmm.
like she feels as though what the man that she's pushing herself away from has isn't good enough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean I make this. I obviously agree with hypergamy. And you can kind of see it like we explain it with like evolutionary psychology. The female of the species would want the man to have a lot of resources so he can give it to her when she's pregnant, so she went up so he can take care of her, so she'll have resources to take care of the kids. So that's kind of like where the idea of hypergamy comes from.
Yeah.
So she is taken care of, and so the kids are taken care of in the best environment. And what do you think of a Nawalt?
Um, I don't know.
But have you heard of Nawalt?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you knew. Okay, so that basically a while I don't know if they still do it, but women started going on I don't think they do it anymore actually, but women started going on MGTOW channels and saying not all women are like that, and then and then they used the term MGTOW started using the term the woke to kind of mock them as a joke, like
Oh, right.
not all women are like that. And so but some MGTOW will like have started to use it kind of like seriously, like Nawalt is a real thing. And so what do you think? 'Cause actually, I did notice that now there are way more women on MGTOW channels for some reason. So it seems to be like, I guess, the edgy thing getting popular. So what do you think of like the idea of an Awalt?
Well, obviously, I, obviously not all women act exactly the same way. I think that all women have a level of deceptiveness. They all have a level of manipulation, but I think it just varies how much they portray it based on things that they've been through. And I think it's the same with men in a lot of instances. Like all men have the capability to do certain things, but some
Hmm.
of them it varies depending on what they've been through. Like for
Okay.
example, I have a friend who's quite a spoilt brat in real life, and she admits everything that MGTOWs would hate about women. But it's because she's been spoiled and she's had everything given to her. All the guys that she's been with just do whatever she wants them to, and she ditches them without even giving it a second thought. She lies about really awful things, but then I try not to be too bad because I've been through some really messed up stuff in terms of my relationships with guys. So I'm kind of more like avoiding interactions with guys in that sense anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't really get the chance to do that kind of stuff. And when I think about lying about like rape allegations or domestic abuse, it sickens me because for people who have actually gone through those things, it's disgusting to lie about them. So I think it just varies on what you've been through as a woman. But I do I do understand why you guys have made it into a bit of a joke.
Okay, so I definitely actually you were the first person to say exactly what I thought on that issue. I kind of had my own theory about it's not a binary, it's a spectrum. right?
Yeah.
The whole Nawalt thing. So each woman would have a different like threshold of hypergamy or whatever. So I definitely agree on on that sense. Each person's gonna have their limit. So that I definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah. I think, in a sense, a lot of, I keep bringing it back to the female anti-SJW YouTubers, but a lot of them do seem to have not really been through that much. So a lot of them do kind of admit the, female privilege, making men do what they want kind of things. And the only ones that seem to not do that are the ones who have actually been through some really heavy things in their lives.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and
I don't want to think that you have to go through awful things to not be like that as a woman, but there seems to be a correlation.
yeah, the most of them do seem to be more like modern traditionalists, which, as I said before, MGTOW do not like either. They don't like modern traditionalism or feminism. Two sides of the same coin, as I said. And what is your opinion on first wave feminism? I made a video about that, and it basically consisted of four main things. We already talked about the voting issue with taxes and the draft, but there were three other things. One was a bachelor tax. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, one was the bachelor tax, another was the white feather movement. I'm sure you heard about that one.
Yeah.
And then there was also prohibition.
Well, see, I focused a lot more on second wave when I was kind of researching for my channel and stuff, and I have very limited knowledge on first wave because obviously when you get taught it at school or at uni, all they really tell you is, yeah, you guys got the vote, yay. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I mean, I I know a lot of the kind of really radical anti-SJW YouTubers and MGTOW YouTubers. They don't particularly like first wave either, but I don't really have much of an opinion. I feel like I don't know enough about it to really criticize or praise it.
hmm So I'm radical.
Oh, okay.
No, because I don't like it. I don't like any wave of feminism. But I did try. I already made like a video why first wave feminism is cancer. But I
Oh,
tried
okay.
making one about second wave, and no need to go into third wave. Everyone knows it's been done to death. But I tried researching second wave, and it was so hard to find anything like any real studies on it. I don't know why. It seems like a mess. All I could find was just like videos, articles, just repeating the same thing, like the political and the like economical rights of women, and just like no examples, no proof, just the same, like just repeating the same thing. But from what I know, second wave feminism brought about the like hiring quotas, affirmative
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of that. Brought about child support, like child support, alimony, no fault divorce, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, not in favor of that. Uh, it brought, oh right, the demonizing masculinity, that started there as well. Don't care for that.
Yeah.
Then the myths about domestic abuse and the whole domestic abuse law, that, as I said, like primary aggressor and the Duluth domestic abuse model, and also the tender years doctrine, where it basically says, if it's a young child, then he kind of has to go to the mother if there's a breakup. So yeah, I'm obviously not in favor of any of those things, but I tried to look for what else second wave feminism did, and I couldn't really find anything. So what other things did it do?
Well, from what I can tell, it just kind of gave women a more, like, a bigger platform to criticize certain aspects of society. Like when I think of second wave feminism, I think of people like Andrea Dawkins, who is one of the most crazy radical feminists I've ever heard. And, her book Intercourse is the most tedious thing to read because all she is doing is basically saying that women should not be allowing men to take advantage of them through sex, and that heterosexual sex is unfair because, women don't orgasm during sex, and, you can class it as rape. And,
Yeah,
just,
just a nutcase.
yeah, but I see second wave feminism as the kind of, okay, we've achieved what we think equality should be. So now let's try and strive for a bit more equality. You know, like it just, to me, it just doesn't, I used to like second wave feminism because I used to think, oh, well, it gave me the right to do this and the right to do that. But then looking at certain feminists that were advocating for certain things and who were respected, like also Toni Morrison, who is a legitimate rape apologist. You know, people don't seem to recognize that. It's just the movement made way for some terrible, terrible ways of looking at certain things. And the whole toxic masculinity thing, I think that enrages me more than anything else.
Yeah, but I still couldn't find anything like that was actually good that they did. That's what I was trying to look for anything good that they actually accomplished. Because if I made the video, I didn't want to sound like, you know, like an idiot, like I didn't research anything. But I couldn't find, other than just repeat, as I said, just repeating the same thing about giving women like economic and political power. I couldn't actually find any proof or any like examples. Do you have any studies you could send me, like something that I could do some research on, because I've been wanting to do that video for a while now.
I can try and look, because I did used to do sociology, so I can try and look through my old textbooks to see how they've skewed it, and skewed the whole, like, you know, we did well doing second wave thing. So I can try and find some.
Yeah, and what's your opinion on first wave?
Like I said, I don't really know enough about it to really criticize it, but from what I can tell, the only thing that feminists like to claim that they did during first wave was get the vote, but then there are a lot of negative aspects to that as well. So from what I can tell, it wasn't as great as people are trying to make out nowadays, but I don't really have enough information to really hammer in on it.
Yeah, so if you want to, like, check out my video on first wave feminism, it's
okay.
I don't have that many videos actually. I'm quite new to YouTube, but yeah, I link I leave links in the description. I use articles, that stuff. And yeah, so what is your opinion but on the voting issue, right? Because we kind of went through it. As I said, I've got no problem with women voting as long as they have the draft and pay taxes.
Yeah, I think because I've always had the privilege of being able to vote and I've never really thought about it, I did, as I got older and was able to vote, become very ungrateful for my right. So when I initially started out doing YouTube and people were saying that, you know, women shouldn't be allowed to vote, I obviously just got automatically offended like anyone else in the, you know, anti-SJW community did. But now that I've actually had time to really think about it, I do think that if you're going to have a say, you should contribute in an equal way to men. Like, if men are going to have to fight for these wars that we're voting for, then I think that if women are voting for them too, then they should have to do the same, maybe in different ways. But, you know, I think that we should all contribute in the same way.
Mm-hmm. And do you think if they don't, they should maybe give up their right to vote?
I think it would be very hard, but I think maybe.
You seem like you've got a lot of internalized misogyny.
See, I have been told that quite a lot because I'm not one of those people that can just say things based on how I feel. Because obviously, I would hate to give up my right to vote just because I've grown up with it.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like taking a toy away from a child. Like, you are gonna get upset because you've had the privilege of having that toy for so long.
Yeah, you know, it's like when, you know how when when you were a teenager and your parents didn't want to buy you like a new phone, right? You realized it's not your money and they don't owe you anything, but you still felt entitled to it.
Yeah.
You still felt like that you deserve it somehow. Even, you know, you didn't work for anything, but because you were so used to having them give you free things, you felt like entitled to, like you deserved it somehow, that you deserved just more free things.
Yeah. It was kind of like that, actually.
So,
I don't know. I feel like after this interview, I'm going to lose a lot of friends.
Okay, I was actually curious about kind of like the ask you some questions about animation, but I'm not going to leave that in the I'm not going to leave that in the interview because that's got nothing to do with what we're
Okay.
talking about right now. So
Okay.
anyway, did you have any? Because I think we covered everything pretty much. Did you have any questions?
Um. Hmm.
Oh, actually,
Main
one thing we didn't cover was the gender empathy gap.
gender empathy gap.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
Oh no, it can wait. It can wait.
No, no, but you might forget. So, just,
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, how did you even find my channel? Because I'm a really small, obscure channel.
uh, trying to remember. It was like maybe a week ago or less. I don't know. It just kind of popped up somewhere. It just. I think I was just
Oh.
watching like a random feminist video, and then yours was the next on the list.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Just completely random, or maybe it was. Oh wait, no, no, no. I think now I remember. I think yeah, I found you. Maybe I found you because of the animation. I really can't remember because I've been looking at. 'Cause sometimes if people leave an interesting comment, then I'll check out their YouTube user, their channel, and like maybe I saw one of them was subscribed to you, so maybe that's how I found it. But it was more circumstance.
Oh, okay, fair enough. It's just because my channel went through a bit of an apocalypse within the last like few months where I deleted a lot of my old content, and I didn't think anyone would really know who I was after that happened.
What what was that like old feminist content?
No, it's because I was dealing with some, like I said earlier, some harassment from another YouTuber, and the end goal of that harassment was to essentially get me to quit, and I just gave in and quit, and then my friends were all like, "No, come back," and so I did.
Was it like a feminist YouTuber or anti-feminist YouTuber?
It was an anti-feminist YouTuber that wanted to date basically, and I didn't want to, and I kept having to block them, and
Oh, okay.
they made about 9 different Google Hangout accounts to contact me, and I had to just disappear for a bit.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And
Um,
I hope they leave you alone.
well,
But
they have now.
oh,
So.
okay, good. So you can go back to making content.
Yeah.
And anyway, as I was asking you before, the gender empathy gap. Do you know what it is?
No.
Okay, I mean, you can kind of hear in the name it is kind of a bit a bit obvious, but so I keep hearing this at least from MGTOW. The reason for the gender empathy gap is that let's say you have a tribe with a hundred a hundred people. Now that 50 men, 50 women, and something happens, 40 men die, you can still reproduce at the rate of 50 children every 9 months or so. But if 40 women die, then you can only reproduce at the rate of 10, 10 children every 9 months or so. Obviously, not. I don't know if they're gonna have twins or anything, but you get my point,
Yeah.
right? It's about reproduction. So the gender empathy gap is basically, just one gender getting more empathy.
Right. See, this is the thing. When women get upset, they do stupid shit, and they can make things up. They can use their emotions to make other men do what they want them to. So I don't want to say that like you have to cater to women in order to make them not do stupid things, but it does kind of appear that way. Because I don't really think that you should give one gender more empathy than the other. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I think if something bad happens to anyone, then you should help them out as much as you would someone of a different gender. I think it's ridiculous. But I think that women have gotten where they are today because men know that if they don't get the empathy or the sympathy that they want, they will cause a fuss and they will turn
Yeah.
it into a huge spectacle. They will take down anyone they need to on the way, and it will just become a massive cluster. So I don't agree with it. Like, as much as we do need women to reproduce, I don't think that if something bad happens to a man, we should give them any less empathy.
Yeah, but it's part of evolution. You can't really you can be aware of it, but you can't really you can't help it. It's not just evolutionary, because also at school you'll see even the teachers kind of pushing the gender empathy gap, but it's also like ingrained into you as soon as you're born, basically, because it's as I said, part of evolution.
Yeah.
Kind of like a survival mechanism of like men to be protective of women so they can reproduce, and so the species doesn't die out.
I do understand that. It is like when you become aware of it, like when the glass shatters and you suddenly realize that it happens and you observe it, it's one of the most frustrating things to have to sit and watch, especially when you are a girl and you're sat there watching men jump to protect this one woman, and you can see that she's doing it on purpose, and you can tell. It's just really annoying to have to watch.
So yeah, so when you take the red pill.
Yeah, yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so what?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I don't want to act like I don't or have never done it, because I'm pretty sure that I have done it at one point, like kind of getting men to do what I want. I'm 100% sure I've done it at one point. It's just, when you know that it happens, I guess I've become more kind of conscious of it.
Well, as you said, the world is not a binary; it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? It's a spectrum. Everyone's gonna have their own different thresholds of it. So everyone's gonna do their own thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Yeah, I think I ran out as well. We mostly just agreed on everything, and those interviews tend to go a lot quicker than when I argue. I've noticed. So
I'm
anyway,
not very argumentative anyway, so.
well, I can get pretty argumentative. If someone doesn't agree with my opinion, I do have a hard time letting it go. I'll just keep bringing it up. But yeah, it is. I did notice that again. A lot of anti-feminists weren't really kind of call women out on their shit. I wanted to make sure that I didn't come across as hostile, hostile, like some MGTOWs that I won't name. But I didn't want to, I didn't want to simp. I didn't want to just agree with you because you're a woman.
Well, to be honest, I'm probably the worst woman to talk to when it comes to this stuff, because I'm very aware that I'm very ignorant, and I think one of the main reasons is that I don't have really the time to research too much for my videos or for streams, or to really catch up with what's going on, because I've got uni, I've got work, I've got family problems that are going on. Like, I've got too much going on. So I am really hard to have a proper conversation with in these situations, because I don't know a lot.
I wasn't like hoping for like this intellectual conversation where each side just throws out statistics. It was more just like seeing your opinion on stuff.
Yeah, like I'm not very knowledgeable.
No, you don't need too much, that much knowledge to have an opinion, right? You can still have an opinion.
Yeah, that is true, but on my channel, a lot of the times when I've kind of given an opinion on something that I'm not that knowledgeable on, I get a lot of hate for it. So I've tried to avoid making comments on things that I don't know much about, because I don't want people to be like, oh, well, you don't know about this aspect of it, and rant.
Do you think you get any feminists watching your channel?
I know that I do, because I've had quite a few people wanting to debate me, and a lot of my friends who are feminists who have cut ties with me did watch my channel for a while. I think I went on a huge rant at one point on a stream about rape, and I think it really upset them all.
Okay, so definitely why, well, one of the reasons I try to stay anonymous. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna show my face or anything. But I do it, like at work. I will talk about it, and like all basically all my coworkers are female, and I seem to get a pretty good reaction out. Actually, like they don't seem to be against it or anything,
Oh,
which is
right.
like a little surprising. But I will just kind of screw around at work. Like I'll give if my boss tells me to do anything, I'll give her like a Hail Hitler salute. So or I'll just go to sleep instead of work. So they do let me get away with things. I think they like me. It's more like of an internship than an actual job though.
Oh, right, okay. I was
Anyway,
going to
so
say, like, my work would not let me get away with doing stuff like that.
yeah, no, but I did notice that most places like school, like everywhere, let me get away with things that other people wouldn't. I think it's because I kind of I approach it just I'll slowly I'll kind of slowly do it. Like don't just if you want to get away with something, don't just kind of start off at once. Like for example, at school when I didn't want to wear my uniform, so at first I just kind of stopped wearing it, and then I still had it in my bag, and if anyone saw me, I just said, oh yeah, I'm after a sports lesson, I'm gonna go change, or I forgot it, or it's in the wash, and every time they'd say, next time you're gonna get sent home, next time something's gonna happen, and eventually I just did it so often, I kept saying sorry, next time, or like one day I'd wear it, one day I wouldn't. Eventually they just kind of left me alone about it. So you just kind of need to ease people into it.
That's fair enough.
Okay, so that had nothing to do with anti-feminism. Anyway, so I think that's like the end of the interview. Yeah, nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, nothing else.
Okay, so thanks for joining.
It's alright.
And yeah, so you are like where I'm gonna upload it, right? Because I have had
Yeah.
people that didn't know that it was going on YouTube. I had the intro and everything, when they saw the other interviews, but they didn't know that I was gonna upload the interview.
What's the point in doing the interview if you're not going to upload it?
Well, maybe they thought they was so interesting. I just wanted to talk to them. So
Right.
anyway,
Yeah, I am aware that you're probably going to upload it.
no, definitely.
Okay. I'm
Anyway,
just a
so
bit
thanks.
worried that I'm just a bit worried that a lot of the MGTOWs will be like, oh, this girl knows nothing about MGTOW.
Well, as I said, from what you don't see, you're not a feminist, and you don't seem like a modern traditionalist, at least. You do seem like, because a lot of MGTOW will advocate for traditionalism, just not the modern traditionalism,
Okay.
not the one where women have more rights. Just like, but then as I said, there'll also be a lot of MGTOW that just hate women. So red pill raise, some do, some don't. Because MGTOW I kind of forgot to say this, but you can have, because MGTOW it's not a movement, it's a philosophy. And
Yeah.
I guess the only like qualifications to be a MGTOW other than being male is just to be like anti-Gynocentrism and to not be married. So you can have all sorts of MGTOW.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
can have like anyone can become a MGTOW. Like Bering, he's technically like Bering had a stream with MGTOW 101 and TFM, and they came to the conclusion that he's technically a MGTOW.
Oh, right.
Do you know Bering?
Yeah, I've streamed with Baron a couple of times.
Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, so thanks for joining. Thanks for being being interviewed by me.
Thanks for interviewing me.
Yeah, and hopefully like what did you think? Am I an extremist?
Um, well, this is the thing, because for ages I was thinking Angry was like a really crazy radical extremist, but then when I actually spoke to him on my own, he makes a lot of the same points that you do.
Hmm. Yes, a lot of MGTOW will make the same point. It's just how it like someone's gonna make the point like screaming and yelling and saying and like cursing, and the other just can make it the kind of make the same point but in a really calm demeanor.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe because I think I'm one of the only anti-SJW YouTubers that are kind of bothering to look into the MGTOW movement without kind of being against it automatically
I
when they
think
jump in.
I think Jeff Holiday agreed to do an interview with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean he wrote like his YouTube Saints account. I haven't heard the reply, but I mean the guy's probably really busy.
Yeah,
But
probably.
he did say like, yeah, I want to also show that there's some sane people in MGTOW, so like something like that. Because I asked him if interview and in his comment section, then he basically, from what he said, it kind of really seemed like he agreed to an interview, but maybe he forgot, maybe he's busy, I don't know. Jeff, in case you're watching this, don't forget about the interview. But anyway, for the third time, thank you for joining. Thank you for being on the interview. Keep getting distracted.
Yeah, sorry.
And you know, if you learn anything new, or if anyone that's watching this wants to be interviewed, you know, I don't only interview women. Okay, I interview both men and women, but women seem to be the only ones that actually respond. Anyway, so again, thanks for being on the interview, and hopefully see you next time, guys. Bye.